Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing really, really well. This feels so cool to be here tonight, and I kind of want to picture, there's actually hundreds of you here, so it's really exciting to have you all here sitting in our chat box. I really wish we were all here in person together, so I'm going to picture the biggest living room ever, filled with cushions and bean bags and snacks and maybe some drinks, and I'm going to picture that we're all here together having an amazing time chatting about books. So thank you so much for turning up to this incredible digital event. I'm already feeling lots of love from the chat. We've been chatting to the authors beforehand, and it's really lovely because they've all been reading each other's books and they're so excited to meet each other. So thank you so much for coming. If you don't know where you are, hi, if you've just stumbled in, we're here to celebrate some incredible YA fiction which is hitting the shelves this spring and summer, thanks to the Tandem Collective UK and Electric Monkey. Hi, I'm Leena. I'm going to be your host for this evening. Picture me with a lantern leading you through the dark forest, showing you the way, and we're going to have some really cool stops on this journey together. So first we're going to have a thriller panel to deliver some chills and hopefully some secret spills we're going to get out of these terrifyingly talented authors, and then we're going to have a reading from the best-selling and National Book Award nominated Tahereh Mafi, which I'm really excited about, who's going to be reading to us from her new novel An Emotion of Great Delight. After that, we're going to be hopping over for some kind of blushing, some fictional character crushing in our romance panel, which I'm absolutely so excited for, followed by Sera Milano talking about the pretty devastating and beautiful novel, This Can Never Not Be Real. And then right at the end, we're going to have a talk from our co-writing team of best-selling authors of the book Blackout, which is an incredible collaborative novel written during lockdown. Wait till you hear the story behind that. It's incredible. I'm really excited. So you guys are going to have an absolute front row seat tonight, so make sure you make the most of it by using the Q&A box to ask all the questions your heart desires. I've come up with a cunning, if I want it to be funny, I think it's funny, concept for our lightning rounds after each panel. So make sure that you get your questions in for that. You can see there's a little speech bubble at the bottom of your screen with a Q&A. That's where you drop those. So short, sharp questions are suggested to give the authors a chance to answer, because I'm going to be very strict with my lightning. If you want to share about the event and the wonderful books that you've discovered, hashtag live with electric monkey is your hashtag. I always love using the hashtags when I'm watching an event, because it means that I get to find other people that attended the event, and not just kind of like sharing it about the authors, but finding other people that I can talk to about the books and what I'm excited about. So you can find each other there as well as us. We'd love to hear what you thought of it too. A reminder that all of the proceeds from tonight, your £2 fiddies, go towards an incredible cause, Arts Emergency. So thank you so much for buying a ticket. If you don't know, Arts Emergency are an incredible charity helping young people to flourish in higher education and the cultural industries. They're currently running mentoring projects in London, Manchester, Merseyside, and the ether, the digital sphere, that very well-known postcode, and they're offering really crucial gateways to hard to crack industries like TV, publishing, and even writing. So your ticket tonight might help get some incredible new storytellers out there, and maybe you're investing in the kind of authors that we'll be hearing from in the next 5 or 10 years. So thank you so much for buying a ticket, and we're so excited for you to be here. I think that's all of my things. I feel like if we were in the room together, I'd then have to tell you like where the fire exits are, where the toilets are, but luckily we don't have any of those issues. How lucky to be living in this digital age. So I think we're just going to crack on, if that's okay with you. We're first going to go to our thriller panel, which I am thrilled about, and I'm going to give them a bit of a grilling. So can I call on our thriller panel?
First one
to the fore. Ginny, Holly.
Hello.
Hello, how are you guys?
Okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm very excited. I feel like I've just been at a party, especially with the music and everything. Oh, yeah. It's really incredible. So let's crack on with the panel. I'm just going to remind people again, because I know people have been coming in dribs and drabs. We are going to have a little bit of a Q&A at the end of this panel. So make sure you drop your questions into the question and answer box. And then I'm going to very cunningly answer as many, well, I get people to answer as many questions of yours as possible.
I love it.
So, yeah, lightning. It's very serious. So first, I'd love to get you guys to chat a little bit about who you are and what your book's about. So let's, oh, there's my screen. Wait, hold on. Let's just see if I can see everybody. Yes, perfect. Goldie, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Yes, tell us who you are and what your book's about.
I'm so happy to be here. Hello, everybody. My name is Goldie Moldavsky. I wrote the book called The Last Girl. It is a thriller, mystery, kind of a little bit of horror about a group of New York City teens. So picture like the kids in Gossip Girl or something. And they have a secret society where they obsess over all things horror and horror movies, but they also play a game where they kind of pull pranks on their classmates. And the objective of the game is to scare their targets and get them to scream. And it's all fun and games until there is a body count, and then there's a masked murderer on the loose, and that he's coming after the group itself, and mayhem ensues. And that's The Last Girl.
Sounds terrifying.
Goldie, you forgot to say dun 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 at the end.
And then the lights will go
that's
out.
True. Dun dun dun.
There we go.
Incredible. Ginny, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your book's about?
Sure. I'm Ginny Myers-Sane, and this is my debut novel, so that's very exciting. The book is called Dark and Shallow Lies, and it is a thriller, a mystery with a little bit of magic mixed into it. So it takes place in the bayous, far south Louisiana, all the way down at the very bottom, south of New Orleans even, in a town that bills itself as the psychic capital of the world. So the question sort of is, how do you keep a secret in a town full of psychics? And obviously in this little town, there are a lot of secrets to be kept, and a lot of magic that sort of is right under the surface.
I can't wait. Holly, tell us a little bit about your book.
I shall. And I've got some props. I mean, it's just the book. It's not that exciting. So I'm Holly Jackson, and I wrote the book A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is the first in a series which has now become a trilogy against my will. The publishers
we love a good non-consensual.
It wasn't a consensual series. And it tells the story of 17-year-old Pip, who for her final project at school, she decides to look into a local murder case that's been closed for like the last 5 years because she doesn't quite think the guy everyone thinks did it is the baddie. So she starts digging and starts asking questions that she possibly shouldn't, and someone doesn't really want her undigging the past. So in the vein of Goldie's book, mayhem ensues, and then some other stuff happens in the second book, more mayhem, more blood, more bodies, and then the third book, I can't even get into it, just chaos from page one. But it was very fun to write because I thought they wouldn't let me get away with it, to be honest. I was like, there's no way they're going to let me publish this, but they have. So buckle up, get ready for that.
Incredible. I don't know if I'm more excited or terrified.
Both, I think, should be.
Well, that leads very well into my first question, actually, because I'm really fascinated by people who can write stories that I can never guess the end of. And I'm like, how do you even go about planning something like that? So I'd love to know, do you like kind of discovery, right, which means that you start at the beginning, you're not really sure where it's going to go, and you kind of feel your way as you go? Or do you write your books backwards, where you're like, I know the ending and then I'm going to work my way towards that ending? Who does which? Is there a variety, or is there this one way that everybody does it?
I'm definitely in the former category, where I have like a good chunk of the story written. I'd say I'm like halfway through a draft when I realize that I've written myself into a corner and I have to figure out like who done it and what the hell is happening. But I like doing it that way because then I surprise myself. And if I surprise myself, I know I'm at least going to surprise maybe one more person, hopefully a reader. I feel like if I started with the villain of the story or the killer, then I would never know if it works or not, you know? And writing is such a lonely profession. You're in your room all by yourself. You usually don't have anybody to like bounce ideas off of. Everyone who I bounce ideas off of is really reluctant to like be the sounding board. They're not interested. So it's usually just me by myself. And I feel if I can surprise myself, then I've got a good thing going. And then I just write towards that surprise.
Like that, your first reader is yourself.
I'm just picturing you gasping at your desk, Gold. What?
That's exactly what it's like. Yeah.
I love that. Holly, how about you?
I'm definitely in the camp of everything must be militant and strategically planned from the get-go. Like, I start like with a kernel of an idea and kind of start researching, plotting, planning. But before I start actually writing, so before I've written the first sentence, I have planned essentially every single scene and every chapter in order. And to be honest, it doesn't deviate a lot from that once I've set it in stone. I mean, past Holly is quite strict, but she will allow like present drafting Holly like a little bit of variation. Like I might come up with like a slight, oh, can I add this in? And I check the plan, it's not there, and the plan's like, okay, this one time you can add that thing in. But apart from a few little like things, nothing major in the plot kind of changes. So I do start knowing what's going to happen, and then in terms of mystery, I then kind of seed it back and work out what clues I'm going to drop in. But I think the most difficult thing is working out how to like realistically and believably have a teenage character work out these things or find these clues, which is always the bit I find challenging, but also really fun, because I like using things like social media and things like Fitbits and apps you have on your phone and kind of working out how I can twist them and use them as like crime solving tools instead. So
yeah, that's really cool, because I think sometimes people are like, oh, now we've got mobile phones, like every mystery is so easily solvable, like if something bad happens you just call the police. And it's actually like, no, I think it's more complicated than that. It actually creates more twists and turns. So I'm picturing you with like a cork board and like some red strings all over it. That's your style. Like I get it. Ginny, how about you?
I think I'm probably somewhere in the middle.
Nice.
I like to know definitely what the ending is. I always know where I'm going. I don't necessarily know exactly how I'm going to get there. So I plot out, some main points throughout the story, but those little details are the things that surprise me along the way, always. So kind of a combination of both. I think because this was my first thriller, my first mystery, I found out that I needed to know what those clues were going to be so I could figure out where they needed to go. So it was a little more complicated than the non-thriller mystery stories that I've done before.
Makes sense. I'm loving hearing all the like variety of different ways you guys all plot, and I'm wondering if that actually also shows the kind of different books that you've got, because they've all got the same kind of level of like, oh my god, what's going to happen, but they're all like also really, really different. So Holly, yours is set in a British town. Goldie, yours is across New York, really, and then Ginny, yours is in kind of Louisiana. Do you think that the settings of your books have kind of like informed the atmosphere or like what the characters do? Do you think it contributes to like the kind of thrills and the tensions? Do you think about that kind of thing when you're writing? I have to nominate someone. Ginny.
Okay. For my book, definitely yes. The setting, I think, is really sort of everything for this story. It would be a completely different story if it took place somewhere else. The truth is, I really am obsessed with alligators. I love alligators, and I wanted to write a book with alligators in it. So I put it in South Louisiana. But for this one, definitely, I tend to be drawn to interesting settings in my stories anyway. That's often the first thing that sort of comes to me when I think about placing a story, is where the world of that story is.
That makes sense. I like the excuse of like, I needed alligators, so it had to happen. that was the I love it.
I love that.
Goldie, how about you?
For me, I feel like I live in Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn in New York, and I feel like I am stuck here just in my stories, in my life. Like, yes, I have to write here just because across America, just the language people use is so different depending on where you're from. Like, we say things in New York that like people wouldn't understand. We say sneakers, they say tennis shoes, you guys say trainers. It's like if I tried to set my book anywhere but New York, I would just confuse myself just based on the language alone. But it kind of presented itself as a challenge, actually, because I don't find New York City scary. I know a lot of people do, but for me, it's like kind of a comfort to live in a big city because like there's so many people around. I'm definitely more afraid in the suburbs when it's just like woods and darkness and just one stranger walking down the street slowly. Like that would frighten me. Whereas in New York, or an alligator. Yes, just an alligator in the swamp. I'm sorry, it's super terrifying. So for me, it was kind of a challenge trying to make the city scary. And also because I use so many horror tropes, and a lot of horror tropes take place in like these little, like the haunted mansion or the parked car over the scenic route, the scenic view. So I had to find different places within the city that would still work in a horror trope setting. But I think I did it. People say that I mean, I read reviews, I know I shouldn't, but I read only the good ones. And people have been saying that they enjoy the setting and they feel like it's part of the character of the book. So that's been nice.
Holly, how about you?
Well, it's an interesting question because I would have thought like the setting did play like a major part, like it's kind of a small town England, so there's lots of use of plonker and other very British things. I think I only used the word plonker once, and actually I haven't said it in like 5 years. So
it's an underused word. I think we should bring plonker back properly.
But it's
what is plonker?
Somebody God, Goldie, stop being such a plonker. You know what plonker means.
Oh, okay. I'm a plonker. Great.
Somebody who plonkers along.
It's like a non-offensive way of saying like, oh, don't be silly. Stop being a plonker. I don't know what the question was now. I guess. So I would have thought it was fairly like British in feel, and I have a very like dark, inappropriate sense of humor, and that kind of feeds into the book a lot. Even though there are kind of dark, serious stuff happening, I'll then crack a joke about arses like in the next page. So I would have thought so, but for my US versions, we have set them in a small town in Connecticut, so I had to change not just like all those things like Goldie was saying. Oh my God, translating from English, UK English to US English, you'd think they're two different languages. Honestly, there is and one thing I've learned, which is I find very interesting, is Americans don't like the word toilet. It's a worm. It's a rude word, apparently. So toilet. Sorry, Goldie. Sorry, Jenny. But then, and like supposedly, apparently, I think the book works in like an American setting. So I think it may not be like the Britishness, but it's kind of like a small town feel, which is quite translatable like across the Atlantic and maybe everywhere, to be honest. That kind of like everyone knows everyone, their secrets, everyone's hiding stuff. So yeah, I would have thought it was fairly British in the sense of like feeding into the story, but apparently not. So I'm not mad about it. So
it's British in the fact that you wrote it. Okay. That's what makes British.
And also there'll be an occasional Britishism that will stay in there, as the Goodreads reviewers tell me. Not that I go on Goodreads, but I do.
I'm getting the feeling that you're all secretly review readers. It's fine. I accept it. So we're going to move quickly into our lightning round, and I'm going to very quickly introduce my ridiculous idea for lightning rounds. But maybe this just shows how bored I am. Stuck in my house. But you know the viral video with Jackie Weaver, you have no authority here, Jackie Weaver, and I was very inspired by this idea of her just like cutting people off. It makes me feel alive.
Wait, you're gonna get rid of us if we answer something wrong?
Off with their heads. No. So I have a question. Actually, we've got so many questions in the Q&A, and we've got ones that are actually pointed at each one of you. So I'm going to give each one of you a question, and I have an egg timer here that's exactly a minute long. So I'm going to give you each a question, and you have 1 minute to answer it. If you finish early, that's totally fine. But after that minute, I or maybe Cha, who has control. Do I have control to mute you? Cha has the authority, but I'll stop you. And yeah, you're going to have a minute, and then I'm going to say, I have authority. I am Jackie. And cut you off. Are you ready? Ginny, I have a really good one here for you first. So I think we'll go first. This is from Gabby. Ginny, how do you come up with the idea for Dark and Shallow Lies? How did you come up with it? Go.
I was driving through Florida and I came across a town that did bill itself as the psychic capital of the world. It was in the middle of nowhere, palm readers, astrologists everywhere. And I just thought, how would you keep a secret in a town like this? Because I'm from the South and I know secrets are hard to keep anyway, but especially in a town full of psychics.
You absolutely smashed that. Look at that. We should probably make it a like who can answer fastest competition. I'm so impressed. I've got to wait for this to go back down now. I didn't factor that into my
I'm just going to answer yes for my question.
Okay. Oh, we've got so many. Oh, you guys. Okay, Goldie, this one's for you. Since horror movies are part of your novel, what are your favorite ones?
Oh, okay. Scream, The Ring, The Exorcist, A Tale of Two Sisters, It Follows, Us, The Omen. Should I just, no, I'll stop.
Yeah, that's okay. I think that's
a strong list.
Otherwise we're gonna like keep writing them down or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. And then Holly.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think that one's people are asking ones, but I'm like, I feel like that's going to contain spoilers if you answer that one. So to respect all of the people who are yet to read.
Be kind.
Yes. Okay, Holly, what is next for you after As Good as Dead?
This one is quite filled with secrets as well because nothing is announced. But I'm retiring.
You can just lie to us if you want. Just make it up.
Living in the Caribbean and sipping wine and not doing any more books.
Yes.
Joking. There will be more books from me, but I'm not sure I can say anything about them other than hopefully they will still be thrillery, murder mystery-ish. There will still be pages and sentences and full stops and chapters. And hopefully you will enjoy them as much as this series. And yeah, coming soon, but not really that soon because I haven't started. So at some point in a future.
That was perfect. I don't think I've ever heard of an author pitch a book that's like, it will have pages and a spine and you can buy it now. It's perfect.
People are pre-ordering it right now.
Under promise, over deliver. It's a really great one. Well, thank you so much for that thrilling panel. I write these jokes myself. Can you tell?
That was a good one.
I need a script writer. I want to be like a barber.
You know what, Leena? You're killing it hosting
this
panel.
Oh, bloody hell!
Oh.
Thank you. So links to Holly, Goldie and Ginny's books are going to be in the chat, so you can open them, bookmark them to read about later, maybe even order them, who can say. But thank you so much to our panelists. You have all been really incredible. I could talk to you guys all night, but we're going to have to move on. So next.
Thank you, Leena.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Gins when all this is over with all of you, please. Next, we are going to be having a wonderful video from Tahereh Mafi. Tahereh is so sorry she can't be live with us tonight. She is celebrating Eid, which is a really, really great excuse, as excuses go. But she didn't want to miss chatting with you all. So she is here by the power of time travel to read to us from her book. Here we go. Can I manifest the video coming? I think I need to turn my video off. I'll see you in a second.
Hi everyone, I'm Tahereh Mafi. I'm the author of the Shatter Me series, a couple of middle grade novels, a contemporary novel called A Very Large Expanse of Sea, and my newest upcoming An Emotion of Great Delight. I am so thrilled to be here to be able to talk with you all today about my most recent work of realistic fiction. An Emotion of Great Delight is a book very near and dear to my heart. It is not exactly a companion to A Very Large Expanse of Sea, but it feels like an appropriate follow-up because it takes place a couple of years later. A Very Large Expanse of Sea takes place in 2002, I believe, and this book, An Emotion of Great Delight, takes place in 2003, several months, a few months after the beginning of the Iraq War. So it's a very turbulent time. It's a very difficult time for the whole world, especially for Americans, but even more so specifically for very visibly Muslim people, not just in America, but all over the world. It was, for me, at least, these experiences, these stories that I write come from real experiences that I had as a teenager. I was a freshman in high school when 9/11 happened, and those horrific events changed the world and changed my life on a micro level. And in these stories, I explore different things. I can't help but speak about a very large expanse of sea as I speak about an emotion of great delight, because I feel like I was trying to do different things with each story. Both books follow Iranian American young women who wear hijab, who are visibly Muslim in a post 9/11 America, but they're both going through very different things, and their experiences are very different. In A Very Large Expanse of Sea, the main character, Shireen, is a very angry teenager, and her journey is all about unlearning that anger. And in this book, in An Emotion of Great Delight, the main character, Shadi, whose name means joy, is actually dealing with a great deal of sorrow, and her story is about reclaiming that joy, reclaiming joy in her life. It's also a love story. It's many things. I'm not terribly great at pitching this book because I feel like it's pretty heavy. It's a lot heavier than A Very Large Expanse of Sea, but I think in many ways it's sweeter too as a result. There's a pretty intense love story in this book, one that I really enjoyed writing. It's possibly my favorite love story that I've written. But it's about a lot more than that too. The book is not just about her journey, her love journey. It's about a lot more than that. It's about her coping with loss and pain and grief. Her father is sick. Her mother is falling apart after the tragic loss of her brother, Shadi's brother, her mother's son, and her friends not talking to her anymore, and everything is just really difficult, and it's all set against the backdrop of a modern war. And I'm not really sure what else to say about it, except that I really hope that you enjoy it. It was pretty intense for me to write. It took a lot out of me, but I think for that reason, I think I put a lot of honesty in it. I drew from a lot of personal experiences, my own experiences, the experiences of people that I knew. And, these are individual stories about individual people. And every book that I write is not meant to represent a monolith, because there is no monolith of marginalized people. These stories are meant to give a voice and to lend humanity to overlooked identities and honestly, really unfortunately stereotyped and terrorized identities. So this is that book. This is one of those books. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your support. And I really, really look forward to being able to come to the UK again soon to see you guys, hopefully in person. I am fully vaccinated now. I am just waiting for the UK to reopen the border. So hopefully when that day comes, we'll be able to meet in person. And I apologize if I'm not looking directly at the camera. I keep forgetting. But my heart is with you guys. Take care.
Isn't she wonderful? That made me feel a little bit emotional, not sure why, which I guess links in with the title of the book, An Emotion of Great Delight. It's really special. Do head over to the chat if you'd like a link to it, and definitely bookmark it to look at later, because it's really one that you shouldn't miss. Okay, we are gonna shake it out, and we're ready to welcome our hopeless romantics to the table. Jenny, Kat, Katie, are you there for me? Come on out. It does still feel like I'm summoning people to the stage. Yes, 1, 2. Hello. Yay.
Hello.
I found you. I know, it's like that, isn't it? It's like, yes, go on. I do feel like a lot of like technology still feels like manifesting at this point. It's just like, yes, make it happen. I know that technology is a science, but I still pray about technology. Anyway, not the point. Right, romance. Let's chat about it. I'd love to do just the thing we did at the last panel as well, just for people who are unfamiliar with your incredible work. If we can just go around and you can tell us who you are and what your book is, please. Jenny, can I start with you?
Yeah, definitely. My name's Jenny Oliver. I have written 2 young adult books, which are Chelsea High and Forever Summer. Chelsea High follows the story of Nora, who has grown up on this like bohemian little island just outside of London, and then her dad is arrested for fraud and her whole life just gets turned upside down. And these rich grandparents swoop in, and she finds she's got this heritage she knew nothing about, and she gets enrolled in Chelsea High, which is this rich elite school. There's like polo, there's Tatler magazine, there's, you know, and she's totally out of her depth, and really she just has to kind of sink or swim, and it's helped along by a gorgeous, brooding, elusive Ezra Montgomery, and she also has like a really bitchy nemesis who makes her life hell. And then Forever Summer follows on from that, but it's actually can be completely read as a standalone, and is much more about like following your instinct and really doing what you want to do rather than what you should do. And she gets like tempted by Coco's gorgeous brother Laurent on a all expenses paid Greek island photo shoot. So
I want to go to that.
Nice. Yeah, I know.
Sign me up. Oh.
That's amazing.
Katie, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Katie and Katherine Weber. Since me and Kat co-write together, and we're both named Katherine, easy to and we are the authors of Twin Crowns, which is why we're wearing matching crowns, not just because we're really into crowns. We both write books separately, but this is our first project that we are co-writing together. And Twin Crowns is a epic fantasy rom-com. It's like The Princess Bride meets The Princess Switch. It's really swoony and epic, and we think it's hilarious. And it is about twin sisters, Rose and Wren. And Rose has been raised in the palace, Princess Rose Ballard, and she's been preparing her whole life to be queen. And meanwhile, the sister that she has no idea even exists, Wren Greenrock, has been raised in a secret kind of coven of witches, and Wren has been training her whole life to come and steal her sister's life and take her place on the throne. So that's where the book kicks off. It's really exciting, and we really hope it is something for everyone. If you're a fantasy fan, Rose is kind of like a Rapunzel from Tangled, and Wren is real badass. We've got 2 distinct romances, so if you like slow burn or if you like hot and heavy, we're trying to have something for everybody. So Twin Crowns actually snuck into the Live with Electric Monkey, because Twin Crowns is coming 2022. And Kat can tell you a little more about it too.
Yeah, well, everything that Katie said, it's the same book.
What she said.
Yeah, I wrote that book also. And it's basically set in a world inspired by Ireland, which is where I'm from, and a little bit of the California desert, because there's no desert in Ireland. And it's sort of this kind of huge windswept adventure for one twin as she travels across this country that she's never known, and ends up kind of discovering more about herself than she ever thought possible. Meanwhile, Wren, who's in the palace, thinks it'll be a breeze to steal her sister's life. How hard could it be to play a pampered princess and make it to the coronation day? But she soon realizes that there are obstacles in her way. For example, Rose's unexpected surprise fiance that she didn't know she had, and lots of other sort of situations that produce great romance and also a lot of humor and awkwardness.
I should add the reason it's in the desert because I live in London now, but I'm from California desert, and I was like, we have to have like sexy desert scenes. I love a desert scene, and so we just plunked a desert in the middle of our version of Ireland.
I like that, giving the people what they want. I love it. So you guys obviously are incredible writers of romance, but you must read some rom-coms and some romance as well. Are there any kind of misconceptions that you find people might have about romance and rom-com kind of genres? And are there any tropes that you absolutely love that are like your kind of favorites? Mine personally is enemies to lovers.
Yes.
Pride and Prejudice fan,
Like
always. Jenny, why don't we hear from you first? What would you say are any misconceptions you might have had about reading romance, or any ones that you like come up against when you're chatting to other people about it?
I think probably the biggest misconception is that like everything is a romance, like every story has a romance in it, and I think it can be, people can put it in a little pigeonhole and ignore it, or say it's not for them, but actually it's in everything, in every crime, in every genre there's romance. And I think it's like, also in these kind of books, I don't think it's just about like romantic love. I think it's about family love and love of yourself and nostalgia and love of your home and love of your childhood. And I think that's what these books are about. They're about like exploring all these different feelings that you have had and that people experience. It's like getting that universal truth out to everyone. And I think that's why they resonate, is because whatever the setting, whether it's fantasy, whether it's, contemporary, it's that the emotions are all messy and relatable, and everything, growing up's a struggle. And I think that's why people go to romance or like a romance book. Me, I grew up like obsessed with things like Jilly Cooper and Heartbreak High and Dawson's Creek and everything, and I just wanted to write something that gave you that rush, that feeling that I felt when I was watching, nowadays like watching Riverdale or something like that. I just can't not, that's what I wanted to get on a page, and that's what kind of motivates me and what I love. So yeah, 100%. Jilly Cooper's Riders, there you go, that can be my top.
Yes. I've been revisiting watching One Tree Hill in lockdown, and it's been really fun. I still am like crushing on everyone. I'm like, oh yes, even though I know what happens and who ends up together. Anyway, sorry. The Katherines.
The Katherines, thank you for catching on to our favorite nickname. Katie and I,
an abundance of them.
So crucially, speaking of romance, Kat is engaged to my brother, and so we're soon to be sister-in-laws. So technically, we could both be Catherine Weber at some point in the future.
It's layers. There's layers here that you don't even want to go into.
Well, as long as one of you doesn't try and claim the other person's royalties, I'm sure
essentially, it's loosely inspired.
Anyway,
we sat down like before we started writing Twin Crowns. We obviously had the concept of a very specific trope that I'm obsessed with is twins switching places. Like ever since the days of Parent Trap or the Mary-Kate and Ashley, obsessed. So we had that general concept, princess and witch, and they switch places. And then we literally sat down and we're like, what are our favorite tropes to see in romance? What are the things that make us tick? So we have the enemies to lovers. We have the kind of the more shy princess thrown out of her comfort zone, and with this enigmatic bandit who, she's like, oh, you're terrible, but are you also sexy? Yeah. Like kissing in libraries, illicit stable scenes, you name it. We just like put it all down, and then it was like this great adventure getting to thread it into this cohesive, exciting plot that we feel has depth to it as well. But we definitely led with what makes our hearts sing and what makes us happiest when we explore it in other stories.
Definitely. No, we had so much fun just talking about, both Kat and I love reading romance and watching rom-coms. And we were like, we should do this together. And it was so fun. So the way the book is alternating chapters and alternating voices. So we each write one of the twins. So it was really fun, like reading each other's. We planned everything. And I think the fun of having two distinct romances is being able to explore so many things. Again, like how we were like, wanted to put in all the things. Like I was thinking, what scenes do I love in films? What inspired me? What would I want to put in? I love the film Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I wanted to have some of that energy, like when they're in the desert, we wanted to have, there's a lot of Princess Bride inspiration, like I was saying. And I think in terms of misconceptions for romance, I think everyone loves a romance, even people who are like, I don't believe in love. That's fine. I respect that. But I think you still enjoy it just because it's it's fun and it's swoony. And so yeah, we had it's the most fun, the most fun thing I've ever written. And then part of that is writing with Kat, and part of it is just really fully embracing kind of the romance genre. And also we were really careful not to ever have the book take itself too seriously. We wanted it to be a joy to read. And like we were saying, we were figuring out there is a plot and there is, you know, background. We were like, that's like the hanger, but like the swooniness and the characters are like the beautiful gown that hangs on the hanger. That's a good sentence.
It's true. And I often find with kind of romances, they're the characters that feel the most real. I don't know what, I guess it's because you don't really get to know somebody until you see them fall in love. It's kind of like a very specific thing. So I think it's really cool.
That's such a good point, because they're so vulnerable in those
moments. And it's the same way that like you can know a friend, but until you see them with like somebody they're really in love with, whether that's like an unrequited crush or like somebody they're like, oh, this is my partner, then you're like, oh, I'm seeing a different side to you. This is fascinating. So I think it's the same with characters. You get to know them better.
And I think in books is where so many people have their first great love. Like my first great love was George, Cooper, and Alana. And like all I want is for someone to have their first love be in Twin Crowns. I'm like really hoping for that. But you know, I feel like it's such a safe way to explore feelings.
Yeah, definitely. I have one question before I'm going to hand you over to the Q&A. So if you guys have Q&As for the lightning round, drop them in the Q&A box right now. But just to hug you guys for one more question. When we were talking about characters, they do always like feel really real. If you had one character in your book that you could become real and maybe have a dinner with, or a Zoom call, I guess. Although like if they're fictional, can they even have COVID? Probably not. It would be safe to hug them. Anyway, I'm thinking too much about this. Which of your characters would you make real and why? Jenny, do you want to go first?
I think it would have to be, I think you're always kind of slightly in love with the last character that you've written. Well, I am. And it would be Laurent from Forever Summer, because he's like funny, and I think he starts off quite posh and doesn't really know himself, and then he realizes that actually she calls him out for kind of being a bit of a snob, and I think he finds his inner self, and he's quite self-deprecating in the end, and he's really great at polo, and he's a bit of a horse whisperer, and he's just like gorgeous. I think I just fell slightly in love with him.
Yeah, I'll go too.
Yes.
Like,
so
he can,
I don't care if he's, he can just become real, and I'll run off with him. Yeah.
Sounds like a non-problematic Chuck Bass, which I'm into.
Yeah.
Katie, we can choose one. Do you can choose?
I feel like we would have different, because Kat and I wrote.
You're allowed one each. I think that's.
Okay.
Physically, the love interest of the character that I write, Princess Rose. Physically, he takes after a lot like my husband Kevin, who I also co-write younger fiction with. And I think part of the reason I love writing romance is because in my younger fiction, there's no romance. It's just like friendship and adventure, which I do love. But it was so nice being able to just like run wild with romance. So definitely, his name is Shen Lo. And he's just this like super sexy bandit. He's kind of like if Robin Hood, the Fox version, were to turn into a really handsome man, that vibe. And also one of my first great loves was the Fox Robin Hood. So
I love the Fox Robin Hood.
I know that energy.
Fox from Robin Hood. It's the same energy.
Shen is like, and also great on a horse, so attractive. And he's also just, he's got a lot of great lines, and I love writing Shen, and I would love to meet him, although it would be weird because he looks like my husband.
Yeah. I would probably go for, I suppose, Ren. Her love interest in the palace is not Rose's hapless prince fiance, but his kind of stoic and brooding personal guard, who is modeled very physically off Jamie from Outlander, but just a little more kind of wintry and I suppose sort of reserved. And then obviously the more time he spends around Ren, the more he comes out of his shell. So I think I would bring him to life. And
he's like Jamie in Outlander, like with a little bit of like Matthias. Like he's very like, we were like, ooh, let me like warm you up, you cold stoic.
Yeah, so I think
I can't believe how much love the Fox Robin Hood's got on the comments. It's like
we didn't realize until we were reading over it, and Katie was like, whoa, I think we've written the Fox Robin Hood as a character, and it blew my mind because it is the same energy completely.
And I have a toddler, so we were watching it and I was like, oh my goodness. So no, Fox. All right, I like all three of our people. I would like to hang out with all of them, and Fox Robin Hood. Let's bring the OG Fox Robin Hood.
I think that should be a genre in itself, just like Robin. There should be a bookshelf in a bookshop that's just like only Robin Hood lookalike characters. The Fox Fest is a real. So we're going to go to lightning round, but I've realised that that I've planned this wrong, and actually, you guys as authors are too good at answering these questions concisely and well. So I'm going to up the ante, and I'm going to give us a minute, and we're going to see how many quick lightning round questions we can answer in the minute. Okay, so we
I have a question. I really quickly, I realized obviously in this conversation we like in Twin Crowns, as you can probably tell by the story, and the main relationships are heterosexual, but there are a lot of LGBTQ relationships in Twin Crowns as well. Kat and I didn't want to like write too much outside of our own lanes with that, but for anyone watching who looks for that in fiction, you will find that in Twin Crowns as well. There's some good we have steaminess for everybody.
Everyone gets this like the Oprah, like you get a car. And then everybody gets Robin. Anyway, not the point. Okay, right, we're going to begin. Let's see how many we can get through. I'm going to go and see how, like, go through all of you as well, so we'll do it. Okay, Colette wants to know, first fictional crush ever.
Like
Jenny.
Robin Hood.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Michael J. Oh, I was just gonna say Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future, but like I know it's not in a book, but that was it.
It works. Worst favorite thing about writing? Like, what's the worst thing you hate? The thing you hate? Why can't I phrase it? Because a few people have asked that.
Is this me again?
Whoever.
What
First person to go.
What's the question? I don't.
What's the thing you hate most about writing? What's the hardest part of writing?
Editing.
Jenny?
I think sitting down to do it. Once I'm in it, I love it, but like getting myself to do it.
Yeah, editing when I like just brainstorming and seeing the finished copy. Everything else.
Yeah, all the
Describe your book using only tropes. Oh no, we're about out of time. I'm gonna let you have this one.
Rags to riches, Cinderella coming of age.
Love it.
Kat, you go first.
Enemies to lovers. Katie.
Switches.
God. Now, yeah, twin switch, mistaken identity,
Robin Hood,
sort of, there's just so many tropes that we love.
We're all sold. It's got everything we want. That's what's becoming clear to me. You got it. Thank you so much. You have all been incredibly dreamy. Thank you so much for giving us so much, and I'm so excited to read all of your books.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. We heart you. Yeah.
We heart you too. You guys are my crushes. I love it. But yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you all soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay, right. From crushes to the next bit. I don't know what I've just been like transfixed by all this talk about Robin Hood. It's sending me woo. So next we're going to be talking to Sera Milano, whose book is so incredible. It's a really fast-paced and moving book describing a terror attack in a small town from multiple perspectives, and it had me thinking for days after I finished it. Like when I was doing the washing up, I was like thinking about it all the time, and like talking to my partner when he came in, I was like, I've just read this book. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Sera. Sera, can I summon you from the depths of Zoom? Hello. Ah, you're here.
I'm just trying to unmute myself. Am I here?
I'm so excited for the real world where I don't have to like unmute myself to talk. I'm gonna like hesitate and then remember that I'm not on mute.
I'm delighted to be here because it's an excuse to put on a bra, which like, why do we bother otherwise?
A brave woman. Here stands like before us a brave woman.
Everyone else gets a panel. And it's just me.
You.
We
should have put a torch on you, like a spotlight. No pressure.
I feel like I need little finger puppets, so I could be like, "Well, this book's about."
You should have just brought your multiple personalities to it. I'm a Gemini, so I have at least 2 personalities that talk to each other in my head.
Okay, it's the 3 of us then.
Well, thank you so much for coming. So I have when I was like, after I finished the book, I just wrote down so many questions, so I'm gonna just have to ask you a few because we don't have all the time in the world, but it's such an incredible read, and I don't think I've quite read a book like it, so I want to chat to you about it, but also without giving too much away to the audience because I want them to read it too. So first I just kind of wanted to ask you, your previous books have been for a kind of younger audience, for children. This is your first step into the realms of YA. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got the idea for the book, and what made you move into writing YA? Was it the idea of the book first that you were like, this has to be a YA book, or were you kind of like, I want to do some YA, what could I write about? Like, which way around was it? Tell us a bit.
Firstly, I'm glad that you mentioned my younger books, because I've been looking for an excuse to mention that I name check Fox Robin Hood in one of my books.
Well, I'm ordering that now. Give me a second.
I have to say Mufasa from The Lion King, he was actually my crush, but Fox Robin Hood, close second. Okay. Yeah, I originally started off by writing YA before I was published, when I was just starting out, seeing whether writing was something I could do. And then I wrote Boy Meets Hamster, which was my first middle grade book on my master's degree, which is a creative writing master's. And I kind of wrote it by accident, in that I brought in a little bit of it, which was just like a trial exercise, and people laughed quite a lot, and I'm a sucker for making people laugh quite a lot, so I just kept writing it. So that's how that happened. And I loved writing it. I loved writing this fluffy, young but just gorgeous and funny book. So yeah, it's quite a shift from giant hamsters to terrorism.
That's a pretty
like,
moment to sleep, but I respect it.
But I didn't quite plan the shift. I always planned to write whatever I wanted to write. I'm not someone that wants to be pegged into one thing, but this book, I just kind of woke up with the idea one night and it's demanded to be written. But I have always been fascinated by this kind of thing, so I think it's just percolated in my brain, and once I'd finished writing the fluffy romances, it was like, okay, this is my time.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think it is sometimes it's the idea that finds you, I guess. It's like, I was like, I don't know, I'm not in charge. I got told in the night.
I think that's usually how my books arrive with me, but this one was wild, yeah.
Yeah, it is good. So what was really also really incredible to me was your author note at the end of the book, which delves into a little bit about your thoughts on this idea of terrorist attacks and addressing them, and having this kind of looming possibility of them kind of hanging over us as a collective community. And I can definitely relate to that, having lived in London for a long time. You cite some of the reading you've done about like how unsuccessful the goals of these terrorist attacks can be, as well as being so cruel and senseless. Can you tell us a little bit about the research you did for the book? And I know that you also made the decision to make this a completely fictional terrorist attack. It's not based on anything that's rooted in reality. Tell us a little bit about your research and why you made that decision.
So my research for the actual plot of the book, being the terrorist attack, was really just kind of being alive at the time that we are alive and being a very anxious person. Whenever I see these attacks happening, because we have rolling news media, I find that my anxiety means that I have to follow the story. I have to learn what I can about it. So I've got years going back to the first one that I really remember was 2011, the attack on Utøya Island in Norway, where a lot of children were killed. And I couldn't process it at all. So what I found myself doing was following journalists on Twitter who were live tweeting the trial. And I think that's kind of very nebulously where the very first little ideas for this book came from, because I was getting these little snippets of the survivors telling their stories, and it gave me so much hope back, because they were incredible and strong and brave and beautiful, and there was all this potential from the survivors, and I think that really stuck with me. And so after that, whenever there is an attack, I found myself looking for the survivors' stories. And yeah, so my research really has been having a slightly obsessive, anxious brain and soothing myself by looking for these survivor stories, but I did not read anything particularly while I was writing this because I didn't want to co-opt someone else's experience and end up putting that in my book. I really did want it to be completely fictional.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like as well that there's again, without giving too much away, there's characters in it who are also, even though it's happening to them, they're so uninterested in what the terrorists' reasons were. They were like, there's nothing that could justify this. It's not about that. It's about the people experiencing it rather than the people perpetrating it, which I think was...
That is my opinion too. I'm not a fan of some of the true crime genres where it's all focused on the killer. And for things like this, I don't care what their reasons are. There's no reason that's good enough to do something like that. Obviously, there are people that do need to look into that, but I don't. It's not going to change my mind. So I wanted to focus on the survivors. And I think with the terror attacks, we remember them for the people that carried them out and the number of the dead. And that's who we think of when we think of these attacks. And we should really remember them for the survivors, because in almost every attack, there are far more survivors than anything else. And the survivor stories that we do have, I mean, like Malala, are so incredible and powerful and help so many other people that I think that's an important thing to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk quickly about the multiple perspectives, because what's so interesting about this book is like how it's not just like one chapter from this person, one chapter from this person. It's kind of like a rolling continuous thought process for all the characters, and you're kind of weaving between them, sometimes between sentences. It's really clever. And I think that's probably also kind of how they're experiencing it in fragments. And I also love like how a lot of the characters form these incredible bonds and friendships and sometimes even maybe romances. How did you go about kind of organizing all of those characters in your head? And then do you have like one character that was like the easiest one to write, that you were like, that's the one that just comes most naturally?
Yeah, in terms of how I went about organizing it, I didn't. My writing process is chaos. I've described it as just starting rolling down a hill and screaming all the way till I get to the bottom, and then I just see what's there. But this one in particular, I woke up in the middle of the night with the idea of this story, wrote down like a few pages about it, and then just wrote it in a month. So I didn't read back. I didn't do anything to organize it. I just let it all come through. And that's how it ended up changing perspectives, sometimes mid-sentence. And believe me, explaining that to people when I'd written it was like, it's in multiple perspectives, not every chapter. Sometimes they interrupt each other mid-word. But it's just, it kind of, that was how it came through to me. And that was how I feel like in the chaos of a situation like that, a terror attack, that's kind of, you're not going to be thinking in a straightforward linear order and recounting it in that way. And I didn't particularly have a favorite character to write. I mean, I think all authors are like, don't make me choose.
Yeah.
But, I did occasionally get stuck on one. If they were walking along and I didn't know where that scene was going, I could cut across to a different scene. And I found that kept the pace going incredibly well when I was writing it, made it really easy to write. And I think it kind of comes across in the reading that it's very boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like one of those reading experiences that more feels like you're falling through the book, like Alice. You just like falling, like it was like I was like tripping through it, like I think I read it in like 2 sittings.
Writing it felt like, if you're curious what writing it felt like, rolling down
exactly like that. Yeah, it's definitely if you're in a reading rut or something, I think I'd really recommend it for something like that, because it just feels like it reads itself. And I'm going to take one question. We've got some really good questions in the Q&A, so I'm just going to take one of them. Colette asks, would you ever consider writing another YA book, and if so, what genre? Now you've listened to the thrillers panel and the romance panel, have we persuaded you, or do you feel like you write something like different but similar to?
If you look on a certain bookseller's website, there is a book called, I think it's called Milano Book 2, which is scheduled for next year, and I finished it very recently. It's YA.
The goss here.
In multiple perspectives. I think there are 4 perspectives, but there are about 11 voiced characters that come through in it. I can't say much about it, but it features my favorite couple that I've ever written and my least favorite couple that I've ever written. So yeah, I am writing more YA. I've got another YA that I'm working on as well at the moment. So
incredible! I can't wait. I don't know if I'm more excited for the worst couple you've ever written or the best. Like, I want to know.
I think the best because I love them, but yeah, the worst ones are really the worst.
Okay. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for writing such an incredible book, and it's really nice to have you here. I wish we could have you in person so I could give you a wine to walk off stage with.
In person.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you so much, Sarah. Bye.
Thank
you. Okay, so now we're going to be hopping in our time machines once again, and I'm going to be able to give you a peek into a wonderful evening I spent on Zoom chatting to Dhonielle Clayton, Nic Stone, Tiffany D Jackson, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. I know, are you jealous? You should be. It was incredible. So all of these authors are contributors to this incredible book called Blackout, which, if you haven't heard about it, is a series of kind of weaved together love stories between Black teenagers that occurs during a power failure in New York City. It's so good. Obviously, that's a lot of people attending the Zoom call, so we had to make sure they could all come. But we found a time to pre-record this. And it was such an incredible conversation. I can't wait for you to listen to it. But before we do, I just want to read you the blurb, because the blurb alone is going to make you instantly want to click off this call and start reading the book straight away, which I forbid you from doing. You must stay, but I'm going to read you the blurb because I trust you. When a heat wave plunges New York City into darkness, sparks fly for 13 teenagers caught up in the blackout. From exes who have to bury their rivalry and walk from Manhattan to Brooklyn in time to kick off a block party, to the two boys trapped in a subway who come face with their feelings, and a pair of best friends stuck in the library surrounded by love stories and one very big secret. They all are about to see that when the lights go out, people reveal hidden truths, love blossoms, friendship transforms, and all possibilities take flight. Oh my God, you need to read it for the library scenes alone. It's so good. So here I am. I'm going to share this little snippet of the conversation with you from these wonderful women behind the book. Dhonielle, Nic, Tiffany, Angie, Ashley, and Nicola. Here they are. Let me summon the magical video. Here we go.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I feel at the moment like I am the envy of every audience member here, because I get to pick your incredible brains for about 10 or 15 minutes. So as soon as I finished the book, I had so many questions and I tried to narrow them down. But I'm really excited to be speaking to you all, and I'd love to hear all about the book. My first question is just genesis story. I want to know exactly how this happened. Whose idea was it? How did everybody come on board? Was it kind of like a thing where you all came on board together, or was it kind of like a tag team? Who wants to tell me the story? Who's guilty? Who's responsible for this?
Danielle.
I know, but I like it when Nic tells the story, though. I like it when Nic tells the story.
No, you tell it, because it's like, I think you should tell it.
Fine. See how they bully me? Okay, so I have a 14, well now 15-year-old niece, and she was complaining about why girls who looked like her, Black girls, weren't the love interests in romantic comedies for teens. And we had watched everything. It was like the December before the pandemic, and then the pandemic started, and then everything sort of globally went to hell. And we were just really depressed, and we were watching a lot of these shows again, and she kept complaining about it. And I thought, Auntie's got this. I want to do something. And I'm in New York City. I haven't left my apartment for 2 or 3 weeks. And I thought, like, the city had come to a halt and had paused. And I thought, we need some love stories. Also, all across America, Black people were being killed at the hands of police. And I was just so frustrated by all of the various things coming together. And I thought, I got to do something. And so I called all of my friends who are on this Zoom, and I said, we got to do something about this. We've got to make some love stories, do something. And
I kind of roped them into doing this interconnected novel of stories and characters that are experiencing some of their first loves or trying to redo love or trying to figure themselves out. And I was just lucky that all of my beautiful friends were like, yes, we'll come down this weird rabbit hole with you. I was just a bully. That's all.
And you call me a bully. You just call me a bully. Like,
I know, but like, let's be real. And I did. I called each one. I was like, okay, so I want to do a thing. And everyone was like, yeah. And I was like, yay! I was really excited.
I find that about the pandemic, it was like kind of a good time to ask people weird favors or weird questions because people are up for stuff they would not have been up for in 2019.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit, maybe you can all tell us about the kind of each of your stories. How was there like a certain framework that was given to you, or did you kind of come up with your concepts on your own and then had a huge Zoom call trying to match them all together, or how did that come about for each of you?
Tiffany.
I feel like I'm just going to be chronically blamed for this, but yeah, it is my fault. So when Dhonielle first like pitched the idea, I typically write like thrillers and horrors, and so the idea of writing a love story, I was like, I don't know, and I was like, it has to be interesting, and she pitched it as sort of a Love Actually, a Valentine's Day, those type of interconnected movies, and that was the only way I was able to really see it, is seeing it like scene by scene. I was like, oh, well then my characters are going to walk from Harlem to Brooklyn, which if you've ever been to New York or even just look at a map, it's a long way. And so I was like, I'm gonna just track their journey, and I'll just split up the story. And then it just kind of became like an idea just from that. And basically, so my characters, Kareem and Tammy, are very much the spine of the book that sort of places everyone else's story. So that's kind of how we started the idea with that. And then after that, I felt like it became really easy. Like we all just knew our marching orders. We didn't really have to do like huge Zoom calls. I feel like we're all like incredible professionals. You probably read one of our books the last like couple of years. So we have the chops. And like that's why I feel like everyone keeps asking like, how did you do that? And I'm like, of course, like
wow.
I think the only other sort of structural thing that we had talked about, and I think this came sort of later, as we already, like a bunch of us already had ideas for who our characters were, like what neighborhood they were going to be in, what basically like the story was going to be about, like conflict wise. Then Dhonielle was like, ooh, it would be really fun if we did tropes. And so we each sort of decided on a trope that we would sort of use to frame our stories. So that was the other thing, because I mean, people always complain about tropes or say that they're overdone or whatever. But the sad thing is, like, Black people don't really have any of these tropes, like stories with any of these tropes. And so we all picked a different one and sort of used that as like the backbone of the story that we already kind of had forming in our minds too.
Everybody gets a trope. Everyone who's got like the one trope they love, I love that.
Tropes for everyone, yeah.
You get a trope. Everyone gets a trope. Dhonielle was up for passing out tropes.
I love it.
I loved it. I was like, Angie's gonna do a love triangle.
Yes, because I like mess. I like messy situations. I think everybody knows this from reading my books. I love drama and mess. So, and I think Dhonielle also did a great job with helping us figure out which trope to do based on our strengths with our storytelling already. So I feel like everybody's trope fits their style and the types of stories that they like to tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know my loves. I read your books. I'm your biggest fans.
And I feel like we were all nervous with Nicola being in the book because she's like queen of the love.
Yes.
Whatever, you guys are all queen of writing, so it just doesn't matter, right? You just have to write. I mean, your love stories made me swoon. I was swooning the whole time, and hopefully the whole rest of the world's gonna swoon along with me.
But it was really funny because I was like, oh no, Nikki's gonna read my story, and and we debuted together, and I've known her forever, but still I was like, she's gonna read my story about love. I don't usually
Guys,
write
can you believe though? Honestly, can you honestly believe that we're here telling these stories like in a global way about Black kids? I just, I get a little chills when I think about it. It's amazing.
That's actually my favorite part. My favorite part of all of this is the way Blackness is represented so like polylythically. Like there's so many different types and shades of Blackness in this book. You have it's just like the diaspora splashed into New York. And that was really fun, getting to kind of play with different ethnicities, and we kind of got to bring our own backgrounds into what we were doing and really show that like being Black is not monolithic. Like there is no just one type of Black person, and there's no one type of Black love. And that was super exciting to play with, especially during the pandemic when we're all like depressed and the world open again. And I'm like, I hate everything. I need to write a love story or something. And Dhonielle really did. She pulled it out, and I'm glad. Like it worked out very nicely, to say the least.
I love the setting of the blackout as well, because I didn't realize there was kind of like New York history of blackouts, because it's not really like, I think in London we've had one blackout in like 2003 and it lasted like 20 minutes. So like this whole like legacy of the New York blackout, I was like Googling it after I read it and I was like, oh, this is like a thing. The blackout was an interesting choice because it's kind of a very kind of shorter, smaller idea of what we were experiencing in 2020, which was just kind of everything that we depended on happening completely shutting down. Did you guys find writing about the blackout like terrifying, or was it kind of like really intriguing for you? Did you start thinking, I wish I was in a blackout instead of a pandemic? Like this is kind of like, this kind of like temporary offline nature to it. Did you enjoy writing about the blackout, or was it made you like worry about having more blackouts?
I preferred writing about a blackout than about a pandemic. Let me just say that. I was so glad when we were talking about it and we just decided, nope, we're not doing COVID in this, It was honestly like an escape. But what I love about the idea of a blackout, especially in a city like that, it makes everything feel a little more magical. Mm-hmm. And it honestly, in some ways, makes New York feel a little smaller. Because all of a sudden there's no power and everybody has to slow down and figure things out and just take their time, to navigate it. And for me as a Southerner, that's how we are all the time. But except when you're in Atlanta on the highway. But
it's fine. You'll be here soon. It's okay.
Whatever. But I hate that traffic. But still, there's something so magical about New York, and there's something even more magical about it with the lights out.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a great device, right? I mean, we get to put. I love when characters are in situations where they're sort of off kilter, and they have to really pay attention and they have to be honest with each other. They have to really get to know each other. And like having a blackout where, you really do have to depend on each other. And, you're just sort of feeling like, I don't know what's quite going on. You get the real person. And in the short story, it works out really well, right? Because we don't have that much time to tell a big, very, very long story.
It is one of my greatest fears. This is like own voices for Tiffany. She has been, born and raised in New York. Like she's dealt with this. I grew up in the suburbs. My father has a generator, 2 of them. We don't do this blackout life. You know what I mean? So he's also from Mississippi, farm people. You know what I mean? Like you got to be ready. I'm terrified to be in a blackout because I have no survival skills. I won't survive a zombie apocalypse. I barely made it through COVID. I was scared leaving my house in a hazmat suit. Like it was real. I wasn't ready. But Tiffany was like, oh, I got this. I know what to do. And like gave us all the own voices that we needed for the blackout.
I think because, I'm like second generation born New Yorker, and my family actually lived through like one of the first big blackouts in the 1970s. And that's like, kind of the genesis of hip hop, genesis of a lot of things that had still occurred today. And then you had the 2003 blackouts. And what's interesting about New York is that when we go through, major or like big emergencies, we all kind of like put down our pretense and sort of like, help each other. So during a lot of the blackouts, you saw, just the everyday man, like standing in the middle of traffic and directing. You had people giving out ice cream. You had people providing shade, especially for like, some of the older citizens here. So it's something to be said about like being able to talk about your city, and particularly a city that I love so much. And that's why I feel like this book is such a love letter, and a well done love letter to New York and as a whole. It's just really interesting to kind of like see how we move, and especially seeing it from a kid's perspective, because we don't see enough like, swoony love stories of Black kids in the middle of an emergency. Usually if Black kids are in the middle of an emergency, it's some type of trauma happening in the midst of it. But this one, we have kids like, walking through the city in the dark, but they're in love too. And that's something really beautiful.
Yeah, I especially loved the idea of breaking into a library during a blackout. I was like, yes, this is on brand. I love it. I can't keep you for much longer, but my last question is, I guess, the book made me think about this idea of like the genius and like one person who wrote a book alone and they're unbreakable and incredible and everybody else must bow. And obviously with every book, at the end of the book, the author will often recognize that oh, thank you to my editor, thank you to my publicist. It's kind of a team effort. But this is that on steroids. That's in the extreme, showing like telling a story together but with very separate and like distinct voices. Do you think like this experience of writing the book together has changed your idea of writing in general, and like how you approach like creativity?
That's a really good question.
It's a really good question.
I've always thought of writing as being very collaborative, because there are so many hands involved. Like even when you're writing just your own book, like I couldn't ever publish something that only I wrote that didn't get edited by a professional. Like I would be utterly embarrassed because it's just not how this works. But it was fun. And I think it was partially fun because we do all know each other, right? But then we all had this kind of shared goal of highlighting the beauty and power of Black teenage love. And so we wanted it to be the best thing possible, which meant there really was no like, the author ego that you hear about. You're not gonna find that in this room. Like it's not here, right? And I think that there's something about that did make the experience one that I hope we get to like do again. And because it was nice getting to share a story with my friends, and now like with the world.
I also think that we did a really good job of like playing to our strengths. So I think that if that's one thing that I take away that I hope sort of changes my writing in the future, is that working with these guys, I feel like I really realized, oh, like this is the thing that I'm really, really good at. This is the thing that Dhonielle's really good at. This is the thing that Angie's great at. And like sort of able to I don't know, pinpoint those things in a way that I don't think any other writing experience I've been able to. Like, I don't know, there's certain things that, you hear about in your reviews, or you hear your editor say, oh, you're really great at this one thing. But I think building a story in this way and sort of having everyone say, oh, well, like Ashley has to do that, or Tiffany has to do that. I'm not touching that. Or like Nicola, is there enough kissing? Like bringing it all together in that way. I feel like we did a really good job noticing and paying attention, and then also appreciating like our various gifts and bringing them together in a really beautiful way.
There's something for everyone, and that was the point. We are so different, but yet what we made together stands together as this, like, I don't know, superpower where everyone's greatest gifts are displayed. Everything that I love about each one of these writers as an individual shows up on the page, and then it's like fused together, which was really fun. And I just got to witness the magic and nitpick them, because really this was like a seamless process, which was great because they're all so good at what they do that I was like, well, I need to step it up and make sure that my story can stand among these titans. And it was just like the greatest gift that I think we gave ourselves as writers, but that we're giving to the world, and reminding Black teens that they deserve love and they deserve magic and kissing and all the things.
All the kissing. All the kissing.
All the kissing.
Not much. I was like, I don't have enough kissing in my story for Nicola Yoon. I was like, oh no.
Is there more kissing? Yes.
All the kissing.
Oh, thank you all so much. I feel like it's kind of like you were showing that it takes like a village to raise a book, and it's just an incredible read. It gives you all the butterflies, and it's going to be out on the 24th of June here in the UK. So I can't wait for other people to read it so I can talk to them about it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And I meant that. You need to read it because I am alone and I need to talk to more people about it. So if you do read Blackout, you can message me. I'm on Instagram, Leena Norms, LenaNorms. Please message me once you've read Blackout, because I need more people to talk to about it, especially that library scene. So anyway, that obviously, as you can tell, was really incredible. It made me really pumped even watching it back, even though I was there. I also want to point out that I actually had some amazing costume continuity, and I'm actually wearing the same dress, not on purpose, just because I like to wear the same clothes. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to this incredible event. Tandem Collective UK and Electric Monkey were responsible for this absolute madness, mayhem, and beautiful mystery. I'm so excited for you guys to discover these books. I don't think you have any excuse now if you say, oh, I don't know what I'm going to read next. I've got nothing to read. Come on. There was such an amazing meal of incredible books going on there. So thank you so much to all of the authors tonight. The links to their books are in the chat. May your TBR be filled with new books galore to sink your teeth into. Tonight was sponsored by the British Snack Co. and Nicks and Kicks. So obviously, I think one of the things I'm living for during this strange year is reading, but it's also eating. Snacks are very important, and because you attended this event and we like you very much, British Snack Co. have offered a discount code. It is Tandem20, and you can get some money off your snacks, which is very important right now. So that's also going to be in the chat if you want to write that down, because I would highly recommend. Make sure to watch out in your inbox tomorrow for your digital goodie bag. I know, you thought it was over, but it hasn't ended. Your digital goodie bag is coming tomorrow, and it's got links, a feedback form, social links, and lots of other goodies in there. So make sure you don't miss it, and check your spam if you can't find it. It's very important. We also have some winners. So there are 3 people who have won. Wait, let me check my phone. Yes, a copy of Blackout. You just saw. Incredible. So drum roll, please. I don't have a drum. I'm just going to drum on my own collar. How was that? The 3 winners are Eleanor from Cozy Book Corner, James Short, and Pasha. So if you have won a book, you need to DM Tandem Collective on Instagram with your address, and they will get that out to you. So you can read it too, and then you can DM me on Instagram so we can talk about the book. Very exciting. And yes, thank you again for coming. You can find others that have attended the events. You can talk to them about the books, and you can talk to us about the books on the hashtag live with Electric Monkey. Let's all find each other, talk about books, please. And thank you so much for coming. I really hope you had a great time. Yeah, I'm really excited, especially with the amount of money we've been able to raise for Arts Emergency. It's really incredible. So thank you so much. And I hope that one day we'll be able to have a real event with real gin and snacks and bean bags, and it will be great. But yeah, good night, guys. Have a great one. Happy reading above all else. Bye.